3% of companies in the United States offer to help employees pay off their student loans. This is according to the Society for Human Resource Management. A new study is finding that this benefit could become more common, especially now that millennials account for the largest demographic in the workforce. Joining us right now is Egon Zehnder CEO George Davis. George, good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, George, your firm obviously is putting people to work. First, I want you to characterize how the jobs market looks to you.
Jobs market is choppy. It is shifting into various sectors. There's technological disintermediation going on. So there's a lot of movement in the workforce. And
you said earlier, and we just reported it, that millennials are increasingly a really important part of the workforce. So are companies trying to respond to that huge generation with different perks?
Well, you know, the millennials for the first time in 2016 are becoming the largest piece of the workforce. So that's a monumental shift. So leaders have to change with them and how they communicate with them and how you inspire them. So I think it's less about perks. I think it's more about competition. How are you going to get these war for talent to get these best and brightest into your workforce?
But do they need to be coddled? Like, is there a sense of entitlement among younger workers? And should they just be thankful that they have a really good job, quite frankly?
You know, it's a really great question, and I think it's overblown, and I think the millennials get a short shrift. I think they want pie. And I use pie because they want purpose, identity, and engagement. That's what they really want. They want to be inspired. They want to, it's a different one. The old command and control, and when the new person comes in, you got to grind your way up to the top, and you got the authoritarian boss. That doesn't work anymore. You know, look at Citigroup. They've changed their whole floor plan where they don't have walls, they don't have doors. It has an open arena for people to communicate. You used to have the old annual reviews. Remember, you had you know, you wait for your year, and oh my God, how much of my bonus am I going to get, and do they like me or not? General Electric, Deloitte, Microsoft have gotten away with annual reviews. The millennial workforce wants constant feedback. They want to know, how did I do today? How did I do on the project?
Right, that gets to my coddling thing. It's like they need constant gratification and praise. Or maybe it's not. I mean, how do they handle negative reviews?
Well, I think a lot of corporate leaders are finding that if you get them more engaged, you get more productivity out of them. So why wait a year to say, well, you know what, you're not really up to snuff, and you had 11 months of less than perfect productivity.
But what about this particular story is about student loans? I mean, you know, are companies coming up with new ways to pay off their student loans? This has been the theme in the election. Bernie Sanders says he's going to have college become free.
Well, you know, when Egon Zehnder engages in the workforce, we talk with candidates and we're into the pulse of the market. What we found out is a lot of these millennials are not worried about retirement. It used to be, what's your pension? What's your package? The biggest issue they have is, how much loan and debt do I have? So I think these innovative companies are coming in. I think Fidelity was one of them that came out with this.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there saying, wow, let's address the most urgent need, which is getting this loan off their back, and that you'll get more loyalty and less turnover.
So companies are picking up this policy. You know, the legislature's not doing anything to help, so private sector's picking up the slack. Are any employers that you've talked to or heard about giving any pushback to doing this? Fidelity done it. Are there companies that are pushing back, not seeing the need for this? Do you think this becomes more pervasive?
I think the companies that are not going to push back are going to lose. I think, you know, if you look at, you know, you're always trying to talk about diversity in the workforce, and there's only 17 female CEOs in the Fortune 500. You know, there's a lot of institutions that come in and they hire at 50-50 ranks. You know, and they come in and they hire both men and women right at the beginning, but they have this huge attrition. But if they're not addressing needs and they're not addressing different things in the workforce, then you're going to have turnover. And those that are engaged women.
What are you cutting in terms of benefits, though? Because there's no money is not free if you're a business. So if you're going to if you're going to pay off the loans for somebody, what do you lose in terms of benefits?
Something's got to give.
Right. So maybe you're not. So now you have a self-directed 401k. So the companies are not putting money into pensions. They're not co-matching. They're doing different ideas. So they're shifting. They're going to shift the benefits to their most immediate need to keep and retain the best talent.
Well, that's a negative if they don't do the co-match. Yeah, that's a big positive, having the match in the 401k. Sure. Let me ask you before you go, because we got the jobs numbers out this Friday, and you're a recruiter. So I want to know where the jobs are right now. Where do you see the biggest opportunities? Our viewers, some of them out figuring out where they're going to work, looking for help. What do you see?
There's a big shift right now. I think we're going into a service economy. We're going to go into health services, business services, a lot into the data analytics. Big data is pervasive. I think the industrial, energy, core manufacturing jobs are shifting. And I think we have to figure out employers for those mid-tier employees, how are you going to retrain them? How are you going to get them engaged in a new economy? And that's a tough one.
So services in healthcare and business services. Professional services.
Yep.
That's been really where the jobs are, the business services for a while.
Yep. And I think, look, technology and disintermediation is always going to be there. So software, SaaS, those things are going to be huge. But if you're in the financial services, and I think we were mentioning it at the break, there's a little disintermediation going on in the financial services markets right now because of technology. So you get a gain on one side, but you get a loss on the other.
Yeah, and let's put into that regulation as well, by the way, because we just did this whole thing about systemically important. George, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. George Davis there. Be sure to